I have a dream, oh, I have a dream. Red, white, and blue, fly free, fly free. I believe, oh, I believe. Will you dream with me?
Good morning, everyone out there. Welcome to Changing Times. It is Wednesday, June the 14th, 13th. No, 14th. 14th, June 14th. Let's get it straight here. June 14th. This is show number 113. We've got Matt Pearson here. He's our producer. And I've got a great guest. I'm Lynn Morris. And this guest of mine, I actually, we've known each other for a while, but this is how we got together here today. And we've been talking about that for a long time. So Vic Porter, how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Vic Porter Ministries. And so I want all the listeners out there to be sure and get out a piece of paper, a notebook, and a pencil, pen, or something, because there's going to be things that we say today that you may want to write down and note. Vic is a difference maker. And like Don Blackard, my co-host, she always says, be the change. You're being the change. And those are powerful people. When you're being a difference maker and being the change. And we're going to be talking about what Vic Porter has done throughout his life. I think you've had 39 years in the ministry as a pastor.
Is that almost 50?
Almost 50.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know where I got 39 at then. Yeah. So 50 years. So you know what you're doing, and you're making a big difference in people. So we are live at the Acts Media Group headquarters in Springfield, Missouri. As usual, Vic, I kind of talk about the weather when I like it. Mm-hmm. And so this morning, the weather was in my area in Southwest Missouri where I live. It was in the upper 50s, and we had a nice rain going on. It was raining for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. It finally stopped this morning. The sun's coming out. It's going to be about 85 today. Beautiful day, because now we've got the plants watered, we've got the yard watered, and we don't have to do that tonight because the rain was sufficient and grass is green. So it's going to be a great day. Well, so we'll just go ahead and get started. So we've got so much to talk about. We've got a book. The second half, we're going to be talking about borrowed offenses. That's one of your books. That's your newest book, but you've written several books. Yeah. You want to kind of start out by talking about your books, and then we'll go back into your ministry of how you started.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, the book Borrowed Offense, that's my first book.
Oh, that's your first book. Okay.
And we get that into prisons. It's a key that unlocks the prison doors for our curriculum.
Okay.
But the way that started is that I pastored for 25 years, and pastors aren't supposed to get upset or anything like that. And I end up borrowing another man's offense against another preacher, actually. And I didn't, what a borrowed offense is, Lynn, is that if you and I are friends and Matt, he says something to me about you, against you and stuff, and he convinces me that you've really made this problem. And so all of a sudden, I have borrowed his offense against you.
Okay.
But you two get together, make up, shake hands, say, but you forget to tell me that. And so for years, and I haven't seen you for years, and I'm still upset with him. And I have borrowed his offense that's controlling my life. And see, that's what happens a lot of times in people's lives. And it happens all the time in churches, at businesses, and families, and so forth. If you'll notice this, the subtitle to my book is Satan's Number One Weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked the Lord one time, I said, why did I put that on her? Why did you ask me to put that on her? He said, because it is the number one weapon that the enemy uses. Offense is a very subtle thing. And sometimes people can be offended for 20 years and don't even know it. And it's just, I say, listen, every time that you and I become offended, or people become offended, then they're being pulled, or they're pulling that offense around with him everywhere they go. The only breakthrough to not being offended is to release them through forgiveness. Most people don't want to do that. There's a lot of folks. The church is full of offense in a lot of situations. Businesses are, families are. And that's the enemy's ploy, is to get them to become offended His second goal is to break their heart through that offense. And the third goal is to lose their identity and who they are. And once that happens, there's a system that he uses for that. But the book, we give a lot of them away. We've given tens of thousands of them away in prisons. We sell them whenever we can, but it's on my website, and they can find that.
Well, you've got a remarkable record, and we're going to be talking about that. I want the people out there. We're being seen right now, Vic, potentially in all 50 states, and maybe 12, 16, 18 countries, and kind of depending on how they wake up. You know, we're live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We're also seen on Daily Motion, Rumble, and LinkedIn. And people, a lot of people I find out, I had a minister the other day that I've known for quite some time, and it's been a few months ago, but what happened was we had some people on there that he had sang with. They were singers, young singers, and he found out about my show, that they had been on my show. And so he wanted to see that show. He had never seen any of my shows. So we've done 113 after today. He had never seen any. And so once he watched that show and watched the young couple singing, then he went back and he went back in our library. You can go back to original show, Human Trafficking, and he was able to watch several shows. So what we find is sometimes people will see a show eventually, and then they'll go back, they'll be intrigued, and they'll go back and watch other shows. So it's really pretty interesting. So you've pastored and started what, maybe 5 churches?
I've started five churches. In Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri over the years. And I've always turned them over to other people. I pastored for 25 years my own, 2 churches, actually 3 churches that I started. And then the Lord began to deal with me about prison. And I had started a church in the Panhandle of Texas. And I knew it was there that I got a hold of the Institute of Self-Worth, the messages of the Institute of Self-Worth. And I began to study those and teach them. And then when I left and I started traveling, I moved to Tulsa and I started traveling across the country. Whenever I first started and moved to Tulsa, I was giving up my livelihood as a pastor, and I had 2 places to speak when I got to Tulsa, and I thought, how's this going to work? But by the end of that year, it was in 99. I started in March of 99, and by the end of that year, I had spoken in 36 different churches across the country.
Wow. And prison ministries is what you do.
I do. I go into leadership conferences, but prison ministries are primary focus.
Wow. And, something else I read about you is not only did you do all these churches, but you also developed curriculum.
I know.
And that's, you got to be pretty smart to figure all that out. So that's an accomplishment. I mean, when I looked at your bio, you are a very accomplished person, but God has chosen you and helped you make that decision to leave the normal pastoring that you do every Sunday and do this travel. I mean, you're making extensive travel. I noticed that somewhere I wrote down all 50 states, and it looked like 122 countries.
144 countries.
Oh my gosh! Then this needs to be updated, because the bio I read says 122, and I'm thinking, wow, that's pretty amazing.
We're in all 50 states, and in all but about 12 of those states, we're in every state prison.
Wow!
And that's where we give the curriculum away. I've written 4 curriculum. I've written the flagship is Volume 1 on borrowed offenses, and it's a 8 subject project, and they graduate from it. They get a diploma at the end of that, and it takes 8 months to go through it. And it started right out here at Ozark Correctional in Fordland, Missouri. It started there in 2003. I started teaching there in 2003. And Lynn, we're still there after all these years. We've been there every week since that time, teaching, and it's just been rated the number one curriculum at OCC in the campus.
So, Vic, what I know and heard is, thank goodness that you and other people like you are going into these prisons, because I would suspect that they don't have a lot of hope
That's true.
in prisons. I tell people every day, every Wednesday, this show is trying to talk about positive things with positive solutions. Even if it's a negative problem, we got to come up with positive solutions. Nobody wants negativity all the time. You can watch that on TV or radio. You're going to hear a lot of negative things. But I do know there's a lot of people, and especially through COVID, we have a lot of people that have no hope. They have a lot of depression, anxiety, just all kinds of mental health issues. A lot of it created by COVID, but we've had it forever. And people are searching for the word. And if you and other people can lead people to Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, then they have hope. Then that's when they're going to have hope. And I'm proud of our show called Changing Times. I appreciate Jim Whining giving me this opportunity. I appreciate the fact that God gave me this name, Changing Times, because Jim and I were trying to talk about, well, what can we call this new show? And I think that everyone will admit that we are in the most changing times ever in our world. It's fast changing. Not everything's positive. Some of it's negative. But we're always trying to figure out the positive solutions for those negative things. I think even today, what's going on yesterday, you can kind of see we are in changing times, and so we got to hang on. We got to go to the Lord, and I think things will be okay. We sure hope they will be. So when you went to Fordland, because I'm familiar with that, that's close to where I live,
Sure.
and the people start they just can't wait till you come back, right?
Well,
and you, I mean, really, that's something for them to do and hear. And did a lot of those men, probably mostly men, but women too. I mean, when they go to prison, are very many of them, do they have a church background?
Probably 50-50 maybe.
50-50.
But some of them, like we've been ministering a lot lately. COVID kept us out of prison for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And I'm back out there now. I'm teaching our curriculums out there twice a week. I'll teach tomorrow morning out there. But a lot of these guys, some of them, let's just say if you have 10 of them or 100 of them, half of them maybe have never been in church. And half of them were saved in. And I noticed this, the first graduation that we did in 2004 out there, I had asked, I said, how many of you were born again before you came to prison? And I had a kind of religious brain mindset there at that time. And 8 out of 10 were born again before they came to prison.
Really?
I questioned that. I said, my religious brain won't open that up.
See, that's hard for me to believe.
It was for me. I still deal with that. But I said, why? And they didn't want to answer, the preacher, but they said, here's the key factor. Here's the bottom line for ISW, is that we teach that they perform. They were in a setting where they had to perform to become righteous, to become for God to like them. And I asked him, I said, so, and that's when I said 8 out of 10, that was that class. And it's sometimes it's 6 out of 10, sometimes it's 10 out of 10.
Wow.
But, and they, they were raised in a rough situation. And whenever if they would do something right and they would pat them on the back, but they'd raise the bar. Okay, now next week you can do better than that. Well, they kept trying to raise that bar because they didn't want to disappoint anybody. But whenever they didn't do it right, it wasn't a good deal. And they would, well, you're going to have to do better. Some have even told, you're going to lose your salvation on this thing. And I'm thinking, all they want to do is have somebody to care about them and love them and to tell them the truth. And so somebody with a needle or a bottle or something that act like they like them for who they are instead of what they are, and they would fall in line with that. Next thing you know, they become addicted. And it's the difference between what we're saying is it's not your performance that makes you righteous. It was Jesus's performance that made you righteous. 2 Corinthians 5:21, or he has made you to be the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. You know, and then the what we've been talking about in the last 2 or 3 months out there is learning how to forgive yourself for what you've done. It's really difficult. It's
Right.
a challenge for them because they would say, "You have no idea," and I said, "I don't, and I'm not even asking for that." Jesus paid that price for you before you were ever even thought of. And then the shame factor. We do a Rural America Leadership Conference, and we just finished it this week. And I taught on the power of shame. The power of shame I like it this way, that shame, when Adam and Eve sinned, the first thing that took place was fear and being afraid. And the fear of being rejected, or ashamed, the fear of being rejected, and then they were shamed. Well, the first thing that happened, I asked the Lord, I said, give me an illustration for this. He said, fear is the fuel for the vehicle of shame that will take you to your hiding place. When you're found, you will start blaming people, somebody else, because we do not want to be rejected, and especially by God. These gentlemen, and I call them gentlemen, they believe that they've been taught. And once you really mess up, you'll have, I don't know, it's going to be really tough for you the rest. But whenever they get to know the truth, that they've already been forgiven, not only for what they've done yesterday, but today and tomorrow. And they begin to get that. And that's how come ISW has become successful. In 25 years, we've seen over 300,000 inmates across the globe born again.
Wow. So I saw that number. What's that number again?
It's over 300,000.
300,000.
We quit counting it.
So think about it. Think of all the lives that you have saved again. And so the Institute of Self-Worth. So this program that you teach in all the ministries, prison ministries, they get an actual diploma, like they're graduating from college or something,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Looks like that. So you have a ceremony,
Yeah.
and that ceremonies. I read in your book some of the comments and things of some of the family members or inmates themselves about how proud they were and what they wanted their mother to see and to know. I've been doing graduations all over the country for years, for 20 some odd years. But we were in the WIN unit in Huntsville, Texas, and we would have roughly 230, 250 inmates in there every session. And I would drive from Nixa, at that time is where I lived. I would drive from Nixa to Huntsville, Texas once a month. And you put a lot of miles on your car, don't you?
I do, yeah. I'm headed out again here in a couple of weeks for another big project that we'll talk about later. But I would go down there to this group at this Huntsville, and all of these guys would show up, and it was a faith-based unit, and I was overwhelmed by the number.
That's amazing. You have to have a big room for 250, 300 people.
A church. So, the church building. They built it. The inmates have built that.
Wow!
And it's big. And so we would get. We did a graduation. Well, I did that for 2 years down there, and we did a graduation, and we took pictures. They let us take pictures of the guys, and one guy came up to me, Lynn, and he said, "Pastor Vic," he said, "can I get a picture with you and my diploma?" I said, "Sure." I said, he said, this is real important to me. I said, how important is it? He said, my mama has always told me I'll never amount to anything. And he said, I want to show her that I do. And it's just amazing.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time.
I actually remember that. You said that really well.
Mhm.
I was trying to say that, but but so you witnessed that, and that has to mean a lot to you too. It meant a lot to that gentleman, but it also meant a lot to you.
We just did a graduation out at OCC, and we've graduated 55 inmates.
55. And some of those gentlemen are not ever going to get out of prison, right?
They
So, I
will
mean,
out at OCC, but no,
but
in a lot of places they
a
won't.
lot of places
No.
you're going,
Yeah.
they're going to be there for life.
Yes.
But while they're living, it's important what you're doing where they can have eternal life. Right?
But what I like to find is find some old timers, if you will, that's going to be there for life, and give them this same message, and they can go teach it within the compounds. And
Oh, that's cool.
we have a lot of graduates actually right now that are out teaching ISW in their communities all over the country. Overseas, we have ISW Bible schools in churches overseas.
So you don't have to really, I mean, this maybe started in prison ministries for you, but you don't actually, the ISL program, the ISW, you don't have to really teach it in a prison. You could teach it in a church or a business or something,
but look,
a community.
The term inmate, the definition for an inmate is this: someone who is confined to a situation against their will. That could be a nursing home.
Right.
That could be a church. That could be a family. I say a church in certain situations. But see, the term inmate has a broad meaning to it. And I say this, there's a lot of people, there's probably 2 million inmates behind razor wire and barbs right now across the United States. There's more people locked up in their own personal prison than there are in prison. A lot of them are sitting in church every Sunday. They're locked up because they don't know who they are. They feel shame. They feel guilt, and they I got to do this so God will like me. It's too late. He already likes you.
Right.
But
they don't know that. So that's why it's important that you're telling them. Exactly.
And we just we do this leadership seminar. It was the best one we've ever done. But a lot of people are, they just lack knowledge. Hosea 4:6 says that my people are destroyed because they don't have knowledge. And he said, my people are destroyed because of the lack of knowledge.
Well, Vic, I tell you what, that's very important. Everyone out there, don't go away. We're going to just spend a few minutes talking about our sponsors. This show is very dependent on our sponsors, and someday you're watching our equipment, and it's nice equipment. We're very, very appreciative of the equipment we have. But I would love to be able to have a telephone system, a telephone line in here, so somewhere in this country or around the world, you could call us and talk to us, just like my radio show I did for 7.5 years. I had a talk show. And it was just honestly great to be able to listen and respond to callers from wherever they're at. And so Vic is telling a tremendous story of what he's been doing and what he's still doing for people. And so that's why we're still trying to raise money for this system. But anyway, our first sponsor, Brad Pistow, he's a fiduciary financial planner right in Ozark, Missouri. And actually, Janet and I put all our retirement money with him. Basically, everything we had, we gave to him after we sold our pharmacies, and thought I was going to retire. And now I'm still in county government after state government. But I've never lost a penny. So the stock market that keeps going down, going up, going down, going up. A lot of people have lost a lot of money. I haven't lost a penny. Actually still continuing to make money. Maybe not as much money as you would if the stock market was just staying increasing, going up. But the good news is when you start to be retirement age, you don't want to start losing your principal. And you're always worried about, am I going to run out of money before I run out of
Already,
life.
yeah.
And so I always tell people it's never too early to start thinking about retirement, especially with inflation, everything that you see today. Be thinking about retirement way longer before you actually have to retire. Brad Pistow is the guy. He's written a couple books, Safe Money Matters and Bulletproof. They both are number one best-selling books on Amazon, and they tell you all about retirement planning. And if you call, this is really good. If you have your pencil and paper ready, if you call 417-581-9222, 417-581-9222. Now, he's licensed in 3 states. So Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. He's licensed in 3 states. He has his own radio show every Saturday and Sunday on KWTO AM 560 in Springfield, Missouri. It reaches a large area in Southwest Missouri going down to Arkansas. But hey, you don't have to worry. He has friends in all the other 47 states, his associates, because he goes around just kind of like you, Vic. He travels and is a featured speaker all over the country. He also is a contributor for USA Today. That's where I saw his name, Brad Pistow. And he had such an interesting article on retirement planning. And Vic, this is how God works. Jan and I are in Florida. We're on vacation. We're eating at Denny's in Florida. And I got this newspaper, USA Today. I like to read it. And so I'm reading the business section, and there's a financial planning article by Brad Pistow. Well, I don't know who that guy is, but I told Janet, I'm waiting for breakfast. I read this article. I said, you know what? We're going to have to do something with our 401ks and some money. And so that's the type of guy I'd love to meet.
Yeah.
But I had no idea where he's from. Didn't say that. Just said Brad Pistow, USA Today contributor. Okay. So we get back to Ozark, Missouri, where we live. I'm at a little restaurant, little cafe called Sands Cafe in Ozark. Great little place. And 4 men, older men than even me, was sitting around a table next to me. You know, you're not supposed to eavesdrop, but I had a friend, and we're eating breakfast and talking. And then here I hear him all of a sudden say, Brad Pistow. And I'm thinking, well, I wonder if that's the same guy that I just read that article just a few days before. And so I said to those guys, I said, excuse me. I said, are you guys talking about the guy that Brad Pistow that is a financial advisor for retirement planning? They said, yeah, he's the best there is. We all use him. And so think about it. And I said, where's he at? And they said, in Ozark, Missouri. Well, I've been in Ozark since 1977. I didn't know that. And so that's how God works. He planted a seed in my mind in Florida. I got back to Ozark, Missouri. I hear 4 men talking. The next thing I know, I'm in Brad's office, and Jan and I entrust him, and he's made us money, and we will outlive our retirement planning. So it's a great thing. So if you call that number, he'll send you a book. He'll send you information, and he's just a tremendous guy. Our second sponsor, Youngblood Motor Groups, they've been in business over 43 years in Southwest Missouri. One of the oldest family-owned car dealers in Southwest Missouri. That is John Youngblood and John Whittaker. John Whittaker usually sits right over there next to Vic, comes in a couple of times a year and tells us about what's going on in the car industry, what to do about electric cars, hybrid cars. Do you buy a car? Do you lease a car? Just all kinds of good information. These guys, I bought my last 2 cars from them. I'm going to buy my next car from them. You're going to find out that I'm not going to be recommending people that I don't use and know that they're the best that there is. So if you're in Springfield, Missouri, anywhere around, I know they sell people in Arkansas and other states come in and buy cars from them. They have great service, tremendous service. Your car's washed even if you go get an oil change, they wash your car, they clean it up. It's just great service. And they feature Nissans and Kias. They've got Nissans and Kias, and they've got a Nissan that actually is awesome. I may try to look at that this next time. It actually is a hybrid that is electric and gas, but you don't ever have to go to a charging station.
No.
It's got a generator on there. So you're going down the road on I-44 to St. Louis, and you're using the electric power. Okay. So what happens if the battery starts getting low? It gets to a certain point and it converts over to gas. While it's going down the road in gas, the generator is recharging and that's the car I want, because I don't have time. And I bet you don't have time to be searching out where you're going to spend an hour and a half trying to recharge your car. So I'm thinking that may be a good car for me. So Youngblood Motor Group is a great car. They have about 150 cars, used cars, right across on South Campbell. They have new cars on one side and used cars on the other, but most of them are program cars or certified cars. You want those type of cars because they go through there from front to back to side, making sure everything's okay on that car. So when you go off the road, you're not onto the road after you buy one. You're going to have a dependable car. So I really highly recommend him. Louis Michael, we talked about Louis Michael. He's our sub co-host, and he's a realtor down at the firm in Ozark, Missouri. But his claim to fame, honestly, besides being an Elvis impersonator, one of the best in the world, he's traveled all the worlds singing Elvis songs before big acts and things like that. And he still is a tremendous Elvis singer. But he's the CEO of a group, a nonprofit called Choosing to Live. He almost took his own life. He's told that story several times. If you've seen our show and heard his story, you're fortunate because you see that he's learned through that. God helped him, kept from pulling that trigger when he had his pistol to his head. He wants to make sure you choose to live. You don't choose death. You don't choose suicide. You've got a purpose in your life. And he goes around telling people that. And I'm so proud of him. I know Don and I have really tried to help fundraise and promote Louis Michael, because he's just that great a guy. And when he's doing real estate, you can call, let's see, the number you can call is 417-988-1086, 417-988-1086. Louis and I made an agreement here on the show, and a marketing agreement is my idea. If you buy a home from Louis Michael anywhere in Southwest Missouri, what'll happen is he will do a Elvis party in your backyard. So probably when you buy a home, I'm going to guess that you'll probably not know anybody on that street. Okay, that's fine. That's what most people will do. But you'll make new neighbors. But you're going to make new neighbors a lot faster, because you're going to have an Elvis party in the back. And then you just tell all your new neighbors to bring lawn chairs. And maybe you can make some cookies and everybody bring their own drinks or whatever they do. But you'll sit there in your backyard and have a tremendous Elvis concert.
Wow.
That is a benefit. If I was looking for a home to buy, I'd almost buy a home just to have Louis Michael come and sing for an hour and a half. So it's awesome. So anyway, that's our three sponsors. We're still looking for a couple more sponsors, but I know God will lead us to the right place. Actually, Vic, this is how it works. I've had 3 or 4 people, companies that wanted to be a sponsor, and I never pulled the trigger with it because I just never felt right. No offense to anybody out there, but I don't want great big corporations. I don't want that. I want family-owned, Christian-driven businesses that has a great reputation, been around a long time, and going to stay around a long time, and know that they're going to take care of everybody, because I don't want to put my name on anything that wouldn't be good for other people. So that's our sponsors. So let's get back. You've got a project coming up in Mississippi.
I do.
What's going on there?
Well, I don't know whether you are aware of a gentleman by the name of Burl Cain or not. I think I mentioned.
Yeah, I've heard the name. I don't know who he is.
Well, Burl was out of Louisiana, and he, whenever they was looking for somebody to take over Angola prison down in Louisiana, they brought him in, and he told them, he said, "Look, I will take over the wardenship of Angola on one condition, that is, you leave me alone. Let me do what I know to do." So they agreed to it. He was there for 22 years. And Angola at the time was the worst prison in the United States.
Wow.
And it's centered on, there was two ranchers that owned all of 18,000 acres. And they would bring people from Angola, Africa, in to help do their work for them. And whenever they got ready to sell, the state bought it. It's surrounded by a big lake on three sides. And then on the other side, it's a forest that you don't want to get lost in. And you don't want to swim in that alligator water either. But so they pretty well hold on. But it was the worst prison in the United States. And his job was to turn it around. It took probably about 12 years. And here's how he did it. He turned it around and he said, we're going to believe in them for who they are. They're not a number, they have a name. And we're going to, and not to believe in them for what they've done. We realize what they've done has got them here. We're not identifying that. But see, the big change is Jesus believes in us for who we are, not what we do,
Right.
or what we are.
Right.
And that, over the years, that changed. I asked a guard one time, our curriculum is down there in 7 different places. Billy Graham has chapels down there that they built. But what happened was that when that's began to change, it changed ever so slowly, but it became the model prison for all of the United States. And I've taught down there several times. I walk down the streets there, and it's safer than walking in any small city in the streets. But he has since gone, he's the commissioner for the state of Mississippi. And he went into Mississippi almost 3 years ago. And the prisons were full of gangs, and he had to straighten that out. Went from 6,500 down to under 800 gang members, and he's got them separated. But he told me when he was in Angola, they joined up with the Baptist Theological Seminary to start a college inside the prison system. And when you graduate from it, then he made you field ministers that would go out into the state and other prisons and start prison churches inside the prisons. Well, when he went to Mississippi, that's what he's doing there. And he and I've had him speak at my partners meeting. He's a great guy, has done incredible stuff. But he started these Bible colleges, I think it's in 23 states. And he said, what I want to do once I get this thing organized down in Mississippi, I want to bring you in and you teach ISW to my field ministers. And then when they go out into the other prisons every weekend, and they're starting churches in prisons. And so here in June, which is a week after next, I'm going to be down there for 5 days. I'm going to be teaching 4 hours a day for 4 days, and we're going to teach them ISW. And then they're going to get a certificate, a diploma. Then I'm coming back in July and teaching the rest of the curriculum to them. And the project that we're working on is covering the expenses and stuff for that, because that's a lot of expense to go to do that. And we're going to go down, and at the end of the 8 weeks, at the end of July, we will graduate. I think it's 18 field ministers that will be released out into the other prisons with guards, and to teach not only what they've learned at Baptist Theological Seminary, but what they've learned with ISW. The difference is ISW it changes from the inside of you out, and that's what they're wanting.
You know,
it's a big project.
That's really awesome. The thing I think about when you're training these field people to go out there and do that, think about how much extra people you're reaching. And so that's just like disciples. That's just like Jesus's disciples. He reached a lot of people, but think about as he as he selected his disciples,
12.
yeah,
That's what he did.
they actually went out and also talked to people.
And there's about
And-
20,000 inmates in the state of Mississippi. We have an opportunity to affect 20,000 lives.
Well, that's just simply amazing. So let's do this. You've got some books that you've
Yeah.
written, and how could people buy those books,
Okay.
order those books? What do they do?
Well, you can visit my website at iswlive.org. iswlive.org.
Okay.
And you can watch all of our curriculum if you want. It's free.
Okay.
We have 4 different curriculum that we've written. And then you can order a product. You can order the curriculum for Bible studies, home studies, and you can order my book on borrowed offenses. If you've never been offended, are offended, or making plans on being offended, you need to buy this. And I don't, if somebody says, "Well, you're just selling your product," I'm really saving you a lot of trouble.
Right.
And
Well, I read your book.
Yeah.
You gave me a book, just a few days ago, and
Yeah.
I've read most of it.
Yeah.
And I finished up kind of last night, and there's a lot of good information, and you really think about some of the things that you quote a lot of Bible verses. I mean, you're proving what you're saying, and things like that. So they can do that. And then how about donations? I mean, where do you get the money to
do that?
You need there's people that could donate.
You can go. We have a PayPal account, or you can send a check to our address at Vic Porter Ministries, 115 North Tuscany Drive, Hollister, Missouri 65672. We also have another one on leadership, another book on leadership principles. Interesting. And then I just finished writing one called From My Perspective. I look at scriptures in a whole different light sometimes, and I write down what the Lord shared with me about those things, or what I've learned from other people. And but yeah, they can order that, and they can send a check to Vic Porter Ministries at the address.
Say it one more time. Vic Porter Ministries
at 115 North Tuscany Drive in Hollister, Missouri, 65672.
Okay.
Or they can go online and they can order product, or they can donate on PayPal. We do that. We just got a donation yesterday from some people.
You have churches that also help. I mean,
Yes.
could churches? There's a lot of
yeah.
great church people out there watching our show, and if they wanted to do a project like a Sunday school class to do something, or if they have a community somewhere, a prison somewhere in the United States that you may not, I bet you know where a lot of them are.
Oh, yeah.
But there could be someplace there's a need. There's a need.
And one of our curriculum, we've changed up a little bit. We've made it a 15-minute segments. With each lesson is 45 minutes long in the original. We've cut that down. We've got 2 ways to do it, but we've cut it down to 15-minute segments for discussion. For Sunday school classes, this is an incredible way to have a Sunday school class. Matter of fact, Lynn, we have a lot of pastors overseas that use this for their messages because people don't go there.
Right.
In Nicaragua, Nigeria, all of those places.
Yeah. So, I think we're going to run out of time, but just real quick, I know that one of the parts of your book I was looking at last night, there was a older man. I mean, I think he was 65, and he wanted to say something to you, but he wrote you a note.
Yeah.
Handed you a note. What did that note say?
Well, I was in the Walker State prison down in near Atlanta, Georgia, and I was doing a graduation down there. And it's a great prison. It is a super prison. But there was this afterwards. I was talking to different people and so forth that had graduated. I think we had like 60 graduates, and this gentleman had come up. I don't remember his name. I could see his face, but I was busy, and he handed me a letter, and he said, "This is my story." And so I got back to the hotel, and I I read it with, I hope I can even get through telling you, but he said this. He said, I was 10 years old. I had a daddy and a mama, and everything was fine.
It was normal.
Everything's normal. And then all of a sudden, one day, mama came to me and she said, listen, your daddy, what you've considered to be your daddy, has left. He said, what do you mean considered? He was never been your daddy. I don't know who your daddy is. And he said, she told him, she said, I'm leaving. It's devastated me to the point that I'm leaving and your grandparents are going to take care of you. And she told him, she said, you just go out on your own to figure out how to live, or if necessary, if you get it so bad and you want to just go ahead and end your life, I would suggest doing it.
Wow.
And she left. And he said, I've stayed with my grandparents for three years. And then I got into trouble all the time. I lived in cardboard boxes. I stole, I cheated. I've been in and out of prison for years. And he said, I was just sent here to Walker State. And my roommate, my cellmate, said, you need to come to ISW. So he decided I have nothing to lose. So he came. And he handed me this letter. And he said, for the first time, he said, I got saved during your classes. But he said, for the first time, I have somebody that believes in me and believes in me for who I am. He said, I've waited 55 years for that.
See, that's a miracle.
It is.
It's God's miracle. So you're performing those. Here, I just read this. It says here that I've had men tell me that if they hadn't come to prison, they would have never been set free.
That's exactly right.
And you, again, that's why Don and I know you're a difference maker. You're being the change because you're making a change. Hey, next week, hey, Vic, thank you for being on. I'm going to have you on again and because there's a lot that we can share. I hope you all have enjoyed this show. You've learned something. Next week, a lot of people are suffering from Alzheimer's today. I mean, we have more and more people all the time being diagnosed. We're going to have a guest on next week that's going to give you the 10 warning signs before you actually have Alzheimer's. So you might be able to do something about it. So we'll see you next week. Have a great week.
God bless you.